In a previous episode, you'd have seen me throw my old brakes in the bin and upgrading for some brand new discs and EBC green stuff pads in the hope that I could improve my braking for an upcoming track day. I also added some camber bolts to the front to try and improve the handling, and most importantly, and probably biggest of all, I have finally installed my custom rear anti-roll bar setup that I put together quite a few months ago, which apparently is going to be the biggest change I've ever done to the handling on my car. But in this episode, now the dust has settled from the Retro Ride show, it's time, and very quickly in fact, to get ready for the Kerber Sprint Day, which is in just about a week from now. As you would have seen in the intro, I've been upgrading the chassis and everything on this car, but that's no good if it breaks down on the way, because nobody's going to be enjoying that. So we need to make sure that the fundamentals with this car are basically up to scratch, and thankfully the 180-mile round trip that I did highlighted a few things that could probably do with a little bit of a refresh or an upgrade. So in today's episode, we're going to be doing an oil change because, let's face it, that's about the easiest thing that you can do for your car to make sure that it stays nice and healthy. The oil in it now is not very old, but it certainly won't hurt. We're going to be doing a complete gearbox oil change. Gearbox on this car has always been a little bit crunchy, but after that long drive, especially towards the end, things started to get a bit hot. It's definitely getting a little bit worse, so maybe the oil's getting a little bit thin or a little bit low. So I've got 2.5 litres of this stuff. We're going to be doing that, get that thing ship shape. And last but not least, any of you that own an old Fiat, or any old car for that matter, know that in hot traffic, it's a little bit of a chore staring at your temperature gauge all the time, expecting it to get too hot. Now obviously, as a car like mine, with a low ratio gearbox in it, it spends the entire trip screaming its head off, so it does tend to run a little bit warm. And I've noticed that my coolant doesn't look particularly fresh at the moment. So again, I've gone for some decent coolant. So we're going to flush the radiator. We're going to put some new coolant in it, and all being well, because I think I've got all the bits I need, we're going to be upgrading the cooling fan for a much bigger, more powerful one, just on the stock radiator, because that all looks good. So I'm going to dig that out of the parts bin. We'll chuck that on, so as and when it does get hot, it should be able to cool it down a lot quicker. But first, and who doesn't love one of these, an unboxing's coming up, but not a normal one. I'm not one of those YouTubers that goes out and buys random stuff all the time for the sake of it. I'm not a big consumer, I suppose, as you probably guessed. I like old cars. I like to try and buy second-hand tools. When I buy stuff, I want to make sure I get absolute most use out of it. I will fix it and patch it together until it is dead. So, based on that, I've bought some stuff to help with the YouTube channel, and I've bought some tools, all on a budget, but budget enough so that it works and I can make it last, but not so budget that it's going to break within 5 minutes and it ends up in a landfill like most of our stuff does. So let me flip the old camera around, we'll have a look what I've bought and see if it looks any good. Sometimes I can't turn down a bargain, and you know, but judging by my drill here and my little bandsaw over in the corner and my little thing here, I don't mind a tool from Aldi and Lidl, and I spotted that Lidl was doing one of these for £25 or £35 if you didn't have the Lidl Plus card, which I do. Now this, as you can see, is a tiny mini polisher and sander. And with the new project that I've got coming soon, I need a miniature sander like this to sort some stuff out. And also when I was polishing the cars the other day, using my big polisher was a bit of a pain in the butt. So I decided that yes, I know I should stop buying random brands of power tool, and I should just start buying them all from the same company. But, you know, money doesn't grow on trees anymore. So we have to try and do this best we can. So now, obviously, I'm not sponsored by Parkside. If I was, I'd be a much bigger YouTube channel than I am right now. So you know that I'm being completely honest with you. But for the amount of money that you pay for stuff from Parkside or Lidl, you can't go wrong. I have got loads of stuff from those various sort of companies like that, and it is yet to break. And it is super, super good. Now, I've already had a little look at this, obviously, but you will notice it is really small. This is going to be ideal, as you can see. It's got a little polishing mitt on there for polishing all those tiny little places. But not only does it come with some actual polishing mitts, so these is obviously the soft one and the hard one for putting compounds and stuff on. It also came with some sanding discs. Obviously, you can buy these anyway. It's just standard sanding stuff. Comes with a charger, and it even comes with a battery. And now this, as I was saying about cross compatibility, this will actually go with any of the smaller Parkside tools. So as much as I don't have any compatibility with my stuff, if I buy any more Parkside stuff, boom, I can buy it without a battery, just use the same one. It's got a couple of settings. You've got really, I think it's about 3,000 revs on the low setting and about 8,000 on the high one. And the nice thing is if you ever break this, it just screws off. you can change it for another one. So I think this is going to be crazy handy. And it's even got one of these to go on there as well, so you can help keep it a little bit more steady. But you will definitely be seeing a lot more of this in the future. For £25, if you can get one, because I mean they've been on sale for a few days now and there was only 2 left in the one I went into. If you can get one, I thoroughly recommend it. It's even got, when you turn it on, a little light there that tells you how much power you've got. Happy days. Right, so that is not really a product review as such. I will let you know if it's any good in the upcoming weeks. Anyway, now the consumer part of my video is over. Let's stretch and get ready for some actual hard work. We're going to take the front bumper off the car because it'll be significantly easier to do all the jobs I need to do. And then we'll be ready for some track action. Now, as I said, it's definitely easier to do this job if you have the front bumper off. Obviously, you still see my oil cooler, which I still haven't plumbed in yet. But the radiator looks all right. I'll be honest, I'm going to judge it when I take it off. Maybe I will order a new one for it because it doesn't look, you know, perfect. But we'll have a look. Now, any of you that have done this before will already know that these bolts here that go up in the inside of there, they're a 13mm. These are a massive pain because they get rusty on this outside bit. These are no different. The other one was okay, this one wasn't very good, so I've oiled this up. What I'll do is I'll loosen this up nicely and I'll put some copper grease on there. I suggest you do the same, otherwise it'll be a massive pain when you come to take the bumper off. But first things first, we're going to take this bottom hose off here, drain all the coolant out into a bucket, and then we'll take the radiator off, which is nice and easy. It is just 2 bolts. Where are we? Just down in here. These 2 13mm bolts there, and then you can drop it out at the bottom. Easy peasy. Now I'm going to save you the boredom of watching me flushing out the system. I'm just going to stick a hose in the top of the expansion tank, if you want to call it that. Just run a load of cold water through it, and I'll do something similar to this as well. But this is essentially what we're looking to replace. I'll be honest, nothing hugely wrong with this. Ideally, obviously, you would have something that cooled this whole section, or you'd have like a shroud, so it would suck air through the whole radiator rather than just this side. I have got an aluminium sheet that I was going to make a shroud for on the turbo one before. I don't think this one needs it yet, but we'll get to that at a later date. But the one I've got, it's got a load more fins on it. It does mean they tend to be a bit louder. We don't care about that because we just want it to cool down as much as possible. And worth mentioning, seeing as the theme today is like budget tools and repurposing stuff, this is actually a mat. It's meant for like card tricks, super thick rubber, and it's perfect for this kind of thing. We don't want to damage all the fins on the radiator because this one actually is in pretty decent condition. So I said I'll grab all the bits out, and then if it looks like the fan's going to be about the right size, you don't want to overhang in too much, and then we just unbolt this, and then we use the kind of cable tie type fittings that go through the radiator and just put it snug, and that will be pretty much it. Although it is worth mentioning, if we do go through with this upgrade, obviously the connector for the Fiat wiring loom isn't going to fit. It's not going to work, so you have to cut it off. Just do a couple of little like spade connector or like a little bullet connector or something, which I've got. So I just need to work out now which box it's in. Ooh, I've just thought actually, while moving this box and getting this engine out, I've just realised I've got a load of coolant hoses still on this engine, my spare engine, that are black, rather than the red ones I don't like. We'll see if we can replace any of them while we've got the coolant out. Yeah, good idea. Here we go, here's the upgrade. Now, I was actually wrong, I apologise. I thought I'd bought one with more fins, but you will see these ones are a lot deeper. So essentially the propeller itself is a lot more like this, which obviously scoops a lot more air, but it does make a lot more noise. Obviously the flatter it is, the easier it spins. So this one should work a treat. Now it is probably just about big enough. I mean, it will probably overhang just a smidge, but the actual fan itself should be directly on the radiator. And this is where I said there's some little holes on either way, all the way around the outside. You push these little connectors through and it actually secures it to the radiator. So far, at least, I've never had one fail. I'd much rather have it bolt on like this because this is nice and secure. But we'll give it a bash. So I'll take this off. We'll keep it just in case. But the one thing I do need to do before we go too crazy is just double check that this is a pull type fan and not a push type fan. Because fans will work in both directions, but usually one direction isn't very good and the other direction is the way it's intended, and it will definitely do it. So we'll stick a 12 volt on this, hands out of the way, of course. And make sure that it's sucking air through this way and not blowing it through the other way. They'd have to excuse the vacuuming, somebody's cleaning their car, but this is the serious bit, and don't get serious on this very often. Be really careful when you do this. I cannot stress enough that you will absolutely lose a finger if you mess around when you're trying to test the fan. So I'm going to do my best to do this so you can see it and me test it out, just so we can make sure this is pushing and blowing the right way. But either way, yes, I remember I told you, so if you lose a finger, that's on you. Right, here we go with any luck. So as I said, I'm going to hold it from the back. I'm going to touch this wire on, and with any luck, I'm going to feel nice freezing cold air this side and not on this side, so it's blowing the wrong way. Oh yeah. It is doing a lovely job. Now, considering that battery is not fully charged, it's not particularly big, and I just jerry-rigged that up pretty well, that was moving a lot of air in the right direction, so that is great. Now, it is very annoying when you think you have a part and you don't. But you know what's more annoying? Knowing you've got a part and not being able to find it. So I've got a fitting kit for one of these. Like I said before, it's almost like a glorified cable tie that just goes through the radiator and just pulls it the other side. Can I find it? No, is the answer. I've got most of the bits. I've got the little pads that go on the radiator so it doesn't damage the fins. I've got these little brackets that go on the fan so that you can fit it this way. Can I find the little cable bits? No, I flipping can't. So either I've used them and I forgot, but I swear when I was tidying up the other day I found them. So either way, I'm gonna have to go to Amazon and get some more of those. They're like £4. It's just more of an annoyance. I can't do it today. But either way, it means I can crack on with the rest of the stuff. So then we'll just push this to one side for a minute while I do the gearbox and the engine oil. Right, let's do the gearbox oil, shall we? I've even got myself a special little tool just for this. Now, it's usually a pretty good sign how your gearbox is doing by how many fragments you've got in this, because this is the little magnet from the inside. It doesn't look too bad, but I will say it's probably in line with the fact that it does crunch a little bit. It's definitely putting some filings in there, so I'll give this a wipe off in a minute, see how we get on. But in case you're wondering why I dropped the camera all of a sudden, in case I didn't catch it on film, yes, I did just pour a load of gearbox all over my floor, which is fantastic. Time to bust out the cat litter. Right, that's 2.5 litres of the finest oil that I could buy. I can't be certain if it was a bit low on oil or not, because it's difficult to tell once you spill loads of it on the floor, but it might have been a bit low. It looked absolutely fine, but it's difficult to tell with gearbox oil because it doesn't really go black as much or anything like that does with engine oil. Speaking of which, next up, engine oil. I'm not going to bother showing you this. This is about as basic as it comes when it comes to servicing your car. I've already got a new filter. This one was fitted to the engine I had spare. It is brand new, so I should be fitting that, and about 4 litres of oil from memory, 3.75, something like that. So I'm going to bust that out of the park right now. And good morning. It's another day. Well, you know that because I just said good morning. It's another day. Thankfully, my man from Amazon turned up last night, dropped off my radiator fitting kit. So we're going to chuck this on now for anyone who hasn't done one before. I'll just show you it quickly. We'll get it back on the car, get the coolant back in it, make sure everything's all wired up okay. And then there's actually one more job that I forgot to do, which I'm not really looking forward to, but it's actually quite a big one and should hopefully make a better difference to how the car both sounds and maybe even how it performs. Here we go. Couldn't be easier. You get 8 little foam pads. These basically fit between the fan and the radiator and the fittings in the radiator, so it doesn't dent all the ribs in the radiator itself. So these little bits, yeah. And you get these springs, which I'm actually yet to use, but I think these go over the end. And then when you actually put the cable ties sort of end on it, I guess it just keeps a little bit of resistance on it. So I guess the the fan can move a little bit, but I don't really generally use them. You can tell me whether you think that's a good or a bad idea. But essentially, you push these through this little fit in here, that goes through the little ribs, comes out the other side. You put a little foam pad on it, and then you push one of these on and then snip it off. Simple as that. I mean, it's a little bit of a pain to get it off afterwards because it's a one-time thing. So a bit nice and straight, job done. Well, for some reason the hyperlapse stopped part of the way through that, but you get the idea. It is on there solid as a rock. Now the main thing to note on this, by the way, especially if you're doing like turbos or anything like that, is I forgot to mention this. This sits about 6 centimeters, 60 mil, depending on where you're from, away from the radiator, and the stock one sits about 120 mil or 12 centimeters away from the radiator. So it does give you quite a bit more clearance, which is also very handy. Anyway, enough talk about this. I'm going to chuck it back on the car and fill the coolant up. Now, I'll be honest, I've got completely carried away because the bracket on here was getting a bit crusty and I couldn't within good conscience put it back on. So that's drying in the sun now. I've just given it a quick paint. And then, if you need a top tip, because obviously it might not be necessarily obvious which two of these wires have to go against